that wire that I told you was critical in the operation of the lifting of this lever here, that this lever here, which is on the other side, has to be underneath that bent wire that comes off this lever. It was on the wrong spot again. I put it back on and it ended up breaking. So now I have to take this thing back apart and make another one of these wires. Fun, 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 fun. Here's the part that wire goes on that I broke. And I just had it. Let me find it. Here's that wire. Remember I said it was a 90-degree wire? And it goes right about there. Let me get something to hold this wire with. These tools right here, which I bought from a fishing equipment store, is really good because it locks into place. But anyway, this wire goes right here. And it goes underneath, it goes on top of the first wire that I made. I got the clock apart. That's why things ain't working right. It goes on top of this wire here that you should be able to see up and down. Remember I told you the tail broke off? Originally, when I got this clock, I meant to say this in the first video, and I failed to. Originally, when I got this clock, this tail came way over here. And every other clock that I've worked on has been in about the halfway place of the movement. But this one, the tail was way over here. So I cut it off. My mistake, because the longer the wire, the better that pin rides on top on the third wheel warning pin. Remember I was telling you in the last video, when this clock goes into warning, this pin on the third wheel rides along that wire, and the hump, the one that goes over the second wheel, is what stops that third wheel warning pin when the clock is in warning, so it doesn't cuckoo. But if the wire is too short, instead of riding on top, it goes underneath. And in the process of adjusting this wire, it broke on me, and so I had to make another wire. So I'm going to have to do the same thing here, is make another wire to replace this 90-degree section. I might be able to drill that out and make this wire go in there, but I'm not for sure. I'm probably gonna just drill the entire shaft. And if you're having trouble drilling, this is hardened steel. Okay, I haven't done it yet, but if you're having trouble drilling in this hardened steel, you might want to get this thing red hot, orange is hot, and let it cool down slowly. That will just soften the metal. But when you get done drilling the hole, you're going to have to make it hard again. And how you do that is you bring it up to heat again and cool it quickly by quenching it in water. Some people say oil. That way it helps with the properties of the metal. It's a freaking clock. It's not a car, okay? If it was an airplane or a car where you're doing 100 miles an hour, then yeah, you might want to quench it in oil. Or if you're doing something for an airplane or something like that, then yeah. Or if you're doing something for a gun, then yeah, it is a clock. There's nothing wrong with quenching it in water. The first thing that you want to do before you drill into a round shaft is to flatten off the wire where it broke, because you're going to have to, a drill will not drill into a round shaft. You have to make it flat. So here's a file, and I'm going to file it down where it broke off. Keeping my file flat. And now, hopefully, you can see there's a flat spot on that round shaft. I'm going to try to use this thing to show you the flat spot, if I can. Yeah, I'm still new at this, and so looking through my phone to look through this, it's kind of rough. Trying to put some light in on the situation. Anywhere, I don't know if I could do this. I apologize. There's where the hole was, and if I could rotate this slightly, you should be able to see a flat spot right there. So anyway, that's where I'm going to drill. But before I drill, I'm going to take a center punch and see if I can put a little divot. Now, Cheryl Adair, and I will add her link to the end of this video, she bought a set that is spring-loaded. I don't have a set of spring-loaded center punches, and I can see the advantage in using a spring-loaded center punch, but I'm going to have to use my old-fashioned center punch. And with the center punch lined up, I've already put, as you can see, this center punch is in a divot of that metal. So now I could take a drill and a sharpened drill bit and drill my hole. Maybe I could do this on camera. Lubrication is your friend. So you need to add oil to the spot where you want to drill, because that will help get rid of the chips. And if you had a lathe, a drill press, this would be a lot easier. I have to hold the drill with this. The bit is not a brand new bit. If you watched the video, previous video on repairing this Alexander Flea clock, I told you that the drill bits are basically a one-time use. It's the same drill bit. So hopefully I can get a second use out of it. We're getting chips, but it's because this is hardened metal, it's hard to drill. I'm going to go heat it up and then soften it. What you do, how you do it, is totally up to you. My videos are only to show you what can be done. I have a Coleman torch here. I'm going to use this to heat up this shaft. I have a cast iron skillet here that I'm going to put that shaft in after it's heated up. And hopefully the brass part won't come undone on me. I'm not going to heat it up all the way to cherry red. I'm just going to heat it up some and then set it on this cast iron skillet. I think that's good enough. I'm going to try it. Remember, I told you to soften metal, you have to heat it up and let it cool slowly. To harden metal, you have to heat it up and then quench it in water, oil, gasoline, whatever you feel like. That was a joke with the gasoline people. Please don't be commenting that I said quench your stuff in gasoline. If you quench something in gasoline, you don't need to be working on clocks. You should be able to see that the color of this thing has changed. It's bluish. So hopefully I won't have to heat it up any further, and I'm going to see whether or not I could drill this hole. It is getting deeper. I need to reposition my tool here because I don't have it to where I have it flat down. You should be able to see the shavings going around it. And like I said, it's getting deeper. And like I said, oil is your friend. Yes, Cliff Bigelow, I was paying attention in your machine shop class. I want to be able to put the wire all the way through, just like I did on the last part I made. And there we have it. It can be done. You just have to use the tool that God gave you, which is your brain. Now I have to select a cutting broach to broach out that hole for the piece of metal that I selected. I'm using the same metal that I used last time, which was made for cuckoo clock bellow lip wires. Got it from Time Savers. Okay, but it's 1.1 millimeters. The hole is from the drill bit. It's 1 millimeter. So I have to get a cutting broach that's 1.1 millimeters. And when you use a cutting broach, I don't care if you got reamers or not, you're going to have cutting broaches. And the cutting broach is designed, the way it's designed, it's flat on each side. You come down here to the end and you can find out what the overall diameter is, which is about 1.8, but down here it's smaller. In order to measure these, you have to twist the cutting broach, because if you tighten up your tool, you can get 1.3. Twisting it, it's 1.5. Big difference, 0.2 millimeters difference. So if you're using this for cutting, using cutting broaches to put bushings in or to put a wire in, you want to make sure that you twist the tool as you measure it a few times. Measure it a few times. And you also want to make sure, this is where I initially screwed up when I was doing my bushings, is I had a cheap tool that I bought from eBay for like $3. I bought this tool from Harbor Freight. It's still a cheap tool, but not as cheap as one I got from eBay. The very end of the jaws versus the very middle part of the jaws versus the very inside of the jaws is different. As you can see, there's a gap on the inside of the jaws. So you don't want to measure there because you'll screw yourself up. So wherever you measure from, make sure that you continue measuring from that area the next time you measure something, because it will mess you up. Trust me, I've screwed up a few things. But anyway, I'm going to use this cutting broach. And like I said, I'm going to solder it afterwards, so it doesn't really matter if I go a little bit bigger, because I'm going to solder it. And y'all don't need to see me broaching out this hole, because it's going to take me a while. I think the last video I did where I was fixing the other wire, I think I used a KWM reamer. But I found a cutting broach that was 1.1 millimeters. And so I got that in my pen vise, and when you get bad eyes, like I do, you put things away that you don't mean to put away. That was the wire that I selected to put into this clock that I just put away, so I had to get that back out. And like I said, every time you do a video, you could do things not on video, but every time you open and start to do a video, things would go wrong. So anyway, I got part of the whole drill, but I want to check my wire to make sure that I don't have to go any further. But it doesn't go in, so I have to go further. And the wire isn't going in, so I'm going to have to measure this wire again. Like I said, when you use cheap tools, this is what happens. It's 1.0. This cutting broach is 0.9. That's why. 0.8, 0.9. I don't have it out far enough. Let's try that again. I think the very end of the wire is smashed, and that's why it's not going in. So I'm going to put it in off camera. Also, with these pen vices, sometimes you have to grab a couple pair of pliers to tighten them up. The broach was spinning in the pen vise, and so that's why the hole wasn't getting any bigger. I have the wire through. I have it bent, and now I'm just going to add a dab of solder to it, and I still have to heat treat this shaft. So I'm going to heat it up, add some soldering, and then quench it, and that way that wire doesn't move. I've told you several times in other videos I suck at soldering. So there's a tab of soldering here, the wire's here. It doesn't move, and that is what the goal was. So this should, in theory, work.